Greetings. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. Today's video is going to be about NPCs, psychic awakening, chakras, and what I found to be the two most dangerous aspects of psychic awakening. So if this sounds like something that you're interested in, stay tuned. Go ahead and hit the like button, and let's begin. So, peace to everyone who's here. Mia Love, peace. Michael Green, peace. Nibs Music, peace. Good to finally meet you. ZJ, peace, peace. The Mental Goddess, peace. LaShawn Newman, peace. Koi Sewell, good to see you, bro. So, there are two aspects of psychic awakening that I've found to be the most troublesome, and I could see these potentially causing a great obstacle for people who don't have inner preparation. L Easy, peace and welcome. Jaren, peace and welcome. Good stuff, good stuff. So, I'm sure you've heard of the term higher self, and you've heard the term the lower self. And what do these terms mean to you? If I were to say the higher self, how would you define that? What words would you use to describe that aspect? Mo B, peace. And likewise, if I were to say lower self, what does that mean to you? How do you define that in your words? Stray Panther, peace, my brother. Higher self, lower self. What do these words mean to you? Let me know in the chat. Because what we know of as the human organism, it exists on multiple levels. Somebody was having a discussion with me earlier, and she made a very good point. The odd number dimensions, 1, 3, 5, 7, they don't exist as you don't exist in them. Organisms don't exist in them as a single entity. In these odd number dimensions, we exist as a composite. The even number dimensions, they're more like in between layers. They're more like fluid. They're more elastic. But when it comes to the odd number dimensions, life is expressed through multiple layers of being. Let's take, for instance, the third dimension, where we are, or where we find our physical body, I'll say. It's more than just the physical body, of course. There's also what has to be taken into consideration with the imagination, with the emotional body, the mental body. These are multiple aspects of the individual. And when we speak of places like the etheric plane or the astral plane, we find that they move a bit differently, because these are more like in between layers. They buffer the dimensions that surround them. So let's see if anyone answered the question that I asked. Koi Sewell says, the higher self is the part of me that is also a part of God, my connection. Okay. Stray Panther says both matter. Sure. Koi Sewell says lower self is my ego. Okay. Sunshine Chick, always great to see you. Jack Rabbit, Occult and Esoterica, peace, peace. Lux Stars, peace. So, there's been something very interesting that I've found in my meditations, right? And if you meditate on a regular basis, you'll start to learn that your inner world is just that. It's a world. It isn't simply you closing your eyes and being very still and very quiet. Your awareness begins to enter its own reality. And this is the true reality. And with your awareness entering this reality, you start to notice that there's a landscape. It's just like playing a video game. I've mentioned this before. These video games that have maps and areas that you explore, the places you haven't visited yet are grayed out. They're foggy. But once you visit those areas, they're detailed. You know where you've been, so you can go back. It's easier to travel to that same place next time. But anywhere you haven't been, it's going to be difficult to navigate. We find the same thing when it comes to navigating your inner world. And the thing about this inner world is that the deeper you go, the less personal it gets. The deeper you go, the less personal it gets. And what I mean is, the deeper you go within, the more you start to reach towards the universal center, right? And from the universal center's perspective, everything is unified. Everything is one. If you know about the elements, if you know about the tattvas, you know that the Akashic egg is the highest element vibrationally, and this element is what contains everything else. So the deeper you go within, the closer you get to that singularity point. The closer you get to the soul, the closer you get to God. And that's where everything is compressed into one. So I say it gets less and less personal the deeper you go within. In the external world, with our five senses, everything is separated according to preference, according to interpretation. Everything is separated according to your interpretation of this reality. So when you go within, there's only so many emotions you can have. You can be angry, you can be sad, you can be happy, you can be excited, right? There's only like a collection of emotions that everyone can experience. There's not like a million different emotions. And there's only so many groups of concepts, right? There's only so many groups of concepts that we can think about. Everybody, well, I can't say everybody, but most people stand for something. Most people stand for some sort of ideal, some sort of identity. And if you look at the similarities between these identities, you can start to find that what most people believe aren't so different from each other. It's just labeled differently. So when you close your eyes and you go within, it's dark because you're not using your physical eyes. But what we come to find out is that this inner world of imagination, this inner world of emotions, feelings, beliefs, and concepts, these are things. They're things. And they're illuminated by what's called the inner light. When you close your eyes, it's dark and you don't see anything else physical. The physical light stops reaching your eyes. But after a while, you start to become entertained by fantasies. You start to be entertained by lusts. You start to be entertained by fears, right? All these different things are coming to your mind. But it was just dark moments ago. The reason that you can see these things is because they're being illuminated by the inner light. Now, while that might sound like something I just made up, remember reading all of the Ophel books, and he talked about when you begin to meditate and go within, you get closer and closer to the astral plane, and the astral plane is illuminated by what he called the astral substance. And he described this astral substance as a type of light, a type of sticky light. Well, when you look at the Vedic concepts that we've also studied previously, right, you've got what they call the Antakarana, the inner tool. That tool consists of the physical body. It consists of the chitta, the mind stuff, which is all the potential that you can use to create anything out of. And when I say anything, I'm talking about your interpretations of reality. That's created out of what's called the chitta. You can call it the imagination. You can call it the storehouse of images. You can call it yasad. You also have what's called ahamkara, which can be translated as ego. And this ahamkara aspect of self is the part that says, this is me, this is not me. I like this, I don't like this. That's an actual function, that's a tool of the mind. And that tool literally slices and separates, I like this, I don't like this. This is me, this is not me. But the whole reason you're able to even conceive or perceive of any of that is because of that fourth aspect of this inner tool called buddhi. Now this buddhi is pure light, it's inner light, it's true light, it's your higher self. And this inner light is what illuminates the ego so that you can actually use that tool. The inner light is what illuminates your imagination so that you can perceive that imagination. The inner light is what fuels the physical body so that the heart can pump blood, so that the lungs can breathe air and siphon prana out of everything in your environment. It's the inner light that allows for these things to happen in your individual experience. Now, this inner light is also what we call the higher self. And like I said, the deeper within you go, the less personal it is. Now, what do I mean by personal? Well, if the deeper we go within, the more personal it is, buddhi, higher self, well, that means that the further that we go from it, the more personal it gets. Now, when I say personal, we're talking exclusively about you right now in your individual body, in your individual home, looking at your phone or your computer or television, right, with your things around you, with your ideas, your perceptions, your beliefs about the world, your memories, your history. All these external things are what you've collected and gathered, or I should say the tool of ahamkara has collected and gathered for evidence so that you can say, this is my story, this is my life, this is who I am, this is what I am. That's the lower self. That's the lower self. All these things that you've gathered, you've accumulated, that you've pushed away, that you run from, your hopes, your fears, your desires, your shortcomings, and your strengths. All of these are part of what's called the ego, the ahamkara, the lower self. And in the occult, that aspect of self is referred to as the illusion. As the illusion. Now, why do you think it would be called an illusion? Someone tell me, based on what I said, based on what you know, why would that aspect of self be called an illusion? I mean, it's real, right? You experience it every single day. Before you got on this video and after you leave this video, you're going to have to deal with the things you like and you don't like, your identity, your fears, your hopes, your dreams, your desires. You're going to have to deal with that. So why does the occult call it an illusion? Somebody give me your perspective in the chat. Peace, Richard Tracy. Good to see you. Peace, Jer. Al Dickey, peace, brother, peace. Entity Cause 1, peace. Wolf Syrian 777, peace. God Science, peace to you. Entity Cause 1 says the ego is our imagination. I wouldn't say that at all. At least when I'm referring to the ego, I'm referring to a tool and a function that literally says, this is me, this is not me. I like this, I don't like this. It's that simple. It's a tool, and it's a function that's running in the background of your experience at all times. There's nothing you can do to stop it except die. And even then it still runs. The imagination is something different. It runs on top of that program, but it's not the same thing. Entity Cause 1 says inner light. Is that what most people call God? I can see that. But even God is multiple levels past what I just described. Okay, XXVII says it's temporal. Yes, it is temporal. That's true. Wolf in Syrian 777 says because it is in and of Maya. But what does that mean? Elisha Eternal says all of it is based off of our 5 senses. Absolutely, that's why. Rashida says because it's whatever you want it to be. Yeah, that too. Jera says it's your perspective. It's subjective. Absolutely. That's exactly why. That's exactly why it's called the illusion. Aldin, peace. Aldin says the ego is the mask, the persona, the part we play. Right. Right. So that's exactly why it's called the illusion. Because for the ego, in this case, right? Everybody has their definition of ego. In this case, what I've described explicitly, the ego, when it perceives reality, its immediate function is to accept or reject, to assimilate or to reject. By that process happening alone, it's a lie. It's a lie. Why? Because I said from the perspective of higher self, everything is what? From the perspective of the Akasha point, from the perspective of God, from the perspective of the Most High, everything is what? Everything is what? Koisul says it's all filtered through our perspective. Our perspective is based on our experience. Nothing is experienced the same. You never see the whole picture. Facts. Facts. That's it. So from the perspective of the Most High, everything is one. Everything is one. Everything is unified. Everything is the same thing. Separation is the illusion. Separation is the illusion. So the whole reason we have this lower self, right there you can stop. At that point, it's an illusion. So anything that happens with this lower self is subject to reinterpretation. The physical body, the aspect of the fourfold tool called manas, the physical body, it literally only perceives dull sensations, light, heat and warmth, you know, sharp pain or something like that. That's it. But see, on top of that program, on top of the 5 senses that just perceive light and pressure, right? Those raw sensations, there's no labels. There's no definition or explanation on those. It's just raw sensation. On top of that, there's an aspect of self that colors and adds layers to those sensations. I like that heat. I like that darkness. I like that light. I like that cold. I don't like that taste. I don't like that smell. This is all extra stuff based on personal opinion. And personal opinion comes from the first time that ego was activated. What do I mean? When you were a baby and you came into the world, maybe your mom wore a certain kind of perfume or held you a certain way or sang to you in a certain way, or maybe she didn't do any of those things. That started the process of this ego saying, okay, I like this, I don't like this. And that program never stopped. It only got more and more complex. In other words, it began to build buckets to put data in. Okay, I like stuff and I'm going to put it here. I don't like that and I'm going to put it here. And every single day that you live, you're adding to those buckets. I like, I don't. This is me, this is not me. And you're filling these buckets up more and more and more until it creates what you call a personality. It creates what you call a person. It wasn't there before. And it will not leave this place. It's not the body's fault. You can't blame the body. So it's an illusion because these things are pulled out of the chitta. They're pulled out of the mind stuff. And they're given labels. There's separation. The whole thing is about separation. Check. But again, the whole reason that we're able to perceive and think and decide and have opinions is because of this inner light. It's illuminating these inner things. Now, what we're evolving towards is a place in our life where we're able to stop that process, or at least rise above that process. Like I said, the process isn't going to stop until you die, but to rise above that process and to observe it without attaching to it. Like I said, the ego is automatically going to start separating. I like this, I don't. But to rise above the ego and to move closer to the higher self, what happens now is that like and dislike doesn't run your life. You can actually look at it and see it happening in real time. Because the like and dislike, that's a reaction. You're reacting to the world. You're not in proactive state, you're in reactive state. You're responding to what's being picked up by your five senses. To rise above that function of the mind, you begin the process of exhibiting non-attachment. You can perceive reality as it is without having to identify with something, without having to like it or dislike it. Have you ever had somebody that you didn't like and you weren't able to be around them? You weren't able to work with them? Like say it's at work or school where you have to be in the same room with them. Did it just irritate you to the point that you couldn't function properly? Right? That's one set of behavior. And then there's a more mature set of behavior where there can be somebody that you don't like and you may still have to work with them or go to school with them or whatever. And you cannot let that affect your performance. There's a way to deal with people that you don't like and not let that affect your performance. It's called maturity. And you'll see that many people are unable to do that because they're unable to separate themselves from that function of ego. See, the ego says, I like this and I don't like this. So the observer, they say, I co-sign that. Since we like this, this is me. Since we don't like this, this is not me. And what you'll find happens is that if you disagree with that person, or if you have a disagreement about their opinion or whatever, that type of person will take it personally. They'll think that you're talking about them, that you dislike them because you don't like cornbread, and they do. They think you don't like them. This is the problem with ego and identifying with the material plane. See, the ego doesn't look up and see the higher self. It only sees what the higher self is illuminating. The ego doesn't see the inner light. It sees what the inner light is illuminating. So the illusion here and the flaw here is what you actually are, the observer, you're watching this ego process and you're identifying with it. You're clinging on to it and you're saying to yourself, that's me. But you got to understand, it's not you. It's an automatic algorithm that's happening in the background. It's automatically happening in the background. And while you can't stop it, you can certainly rise above it. And see, this is another reason why when you begin your spiritual practice, it becomes a lot easier to get distracted, doesn't it? It becomes a lot easier to fall off, doesn't it? Because notice I mentioned there was multiple layers to this existence. That's what I said in the beginning of this video. There's multiple layers to your existence. Now you have this ego whose pure function is to decide I like this or I don't. You got this inner light that's illuminating everything. and you've got this observer that's watching the whole thing go down. Now, what do you think that observer is? What do you think that observer is? If the observer isn't the ego, if it isn't the body, if it isn't the higher self, what is this observer? Somebody tell me, or at least give me an idea of what you think. At least give me an idea what you think. Framestar Films, good to see you, brother. Peace. Framestar Film says, first there was the word, all language. First there was the word. All language is a construct. As soon as experience is categorized, it ceases to maintain its true essence. Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, don't be afraid to guess. This test is not being graded, but I do want you to think. I do want you to think. So tell me what you think. Jiren says God self. Natural mystic peace. Keisha Murphy says consciousness. Jackrabbit Occult and Esoterica says the I. Stray Panther says the soul. Jackrabbit Occult and Esoterica says the I watches the me. Right, right. Kevros SS God says you are the observer. Yeah. I mean, you could say that you are all these parts that I talked about, but yeah. LaShawn Newman says the observer is what we call God. Alligator says Shiva. XXVII says ancestors. Perhaps. So this is the thing. There's multiple layers to the existence of you. And at the very lowest layer, you've got the physical body that receives raw sensation from the world around it, the environment. And by the way, the environment and the body are one organism. It's the same organism. You are a part of your environment. You are a part of your environment. And if you really want like a quick example of what the fourth dimension looks like, right? Because the second dimension is dealing with a space that's very flat, we could say. And the third dimension is an expansion of space, unlimited space. So for a two-dimensional being to go into the third dimension, they begin to take advantage of space. Now, the fourth dimension involves time. And for a third-dimensional entity to take advantage of the fourth dimension, you gain access to unlimited time. Cyclical time. Time that doesn't move in a straight line, but moves in a very tight spiral. So to get an example of what the fourth dimension looks like, imagine your home, right? Think about your home and all the rooms where you live. You got your bedroom, and what do you do in there, right? Think about you sleeping on the bed or whatever else you do in there. Think about the bathroom that you go to. Think about the kitchen that you go to. Think about your living room. And think about the path that you follow every day. From waking up to go into the bathroom, to go into the kitchen, to go into the living room. Think about the path that you follow and the steps that you trace. You probably walk across the exact same path every time, right? Now, you ever seen one of those pictures where it's like time lapse and you'll have like a hand and you'll capture this here and I move my hand a little bit, but since you have both the previous point and the next point, it almost looks like an echo, and I keep doing this and you capture each point, each frame, and it looks like a long trail instead of a solid hand. Yeah? Well, consider that with your home. Think about where you lay on your bed and then you rise up and you get off the bed and you walk to the bathroom and then you walk to the kitchen and you make your coffee and your breakfast and then you walk to the living room. Think about that whole path as one long connected organism, right? That's all you. Now let's expand that some more. Think about you going to school or going to work. Think about you going out to the car, right? You drive in the path that you always drive. Think about going to your class or your workplace and those steps that you retrace every day and then make your way back home. Connect every single moment of your path through the bedroom, to the kitchen, to the living room, to your car, or bus, or Uber, to your destination, your workplace. Imagine as if that whole path is one connected organism, almost like this long worm. That's what you look like in the fourth dimension, especially if you've been there for several years, doing the same things for several years. You ever wonder why they talk about how ghosts haunt the places where they used to live, or the place that they died in? That poltergeist behavior and shit like that happens in specific places. Why do you think that might be? If you want to think about the fourth dimension, and we talk about unlimited time, that whole path that you traveled, that's all you. That's why I say you are one with your environment. All the little particles of flesh and hair that comes off of you and it collects on your fan and becomes dust. All that's you. You're literally this worm that's shedding itself all over your environment. And those of you who litter and leave a mess all over the place, that's you too. That's your karma too. So when we talk about time, what time actually is if you take a slice of that worm, just a cross-section slice of that worm, and there we'll find you standing there in the kitchen, in your flip-flops, cooking pancakes. That's a slice of that worm. And if you come over here to another slice of that worm, this is you putting the key into the ignition of the car about to start it up. Now let's expand it some more. Go backwards, all the way back to when you were a child, and think about where you spent your childhood. Think about where you spent your adolescence years. Think about when you got your first kiss and all that good stuff. Think about you going to high school and the path that you took, and then college if you did that, or your first job or whatever. And fast forward all the way into where you become an elderly person. All of this is your life in the fourth dimension, from beginning to end. You are this long worm creature in the fourth dimension. That's what you look like. So when we talk about time travel and accessing thoughts and experiences from the past or the future, this is what you do. You tap into a slice of that worm. The past didn't go anywhere, and the future didn't go anywhere. It's all a part of your organism. It's all a part of you. So that's what the fourth dimension looks like. Let's get back to what we were saying. What I was saying was we got the layers of the body, and that physical layer, what the Vedic texts call manas, that physical body is that worm entity thing. And it senses differences in the light. It senses differences in pressure, right? Pressure of the ears, of the nose, of the tongue, of the body. That's all this organism does. Now this organism has something attached to it, right? It has something driving it and riding it, like a camel or a vehicle. Don't we call the physical body a vehicle? See, the physical body isn't going to ascend to heaven because it's a part of Prakriti, it's a part of nature, it's a part of the matrix. That whole worm thing, and get this, that worm thing is intermingled with the other people in your life, right? You didn't start as a baby, you came out of your mom and dad. So those two worm things, and then you split off and branched off, and the kids that you branch off, and the people that you mix and cohabitate with, the whole human race is like this giant spaghetti thing. It's a flying spaghetti monster. Oy vey. Did I lose anybody, or is this all copacetic? Are you able to see that? Are you able to visualize that? Does it make sense? Aldin says, reminds me of neural pathways in the brain. Yeah, as above, so below, right? Jer says, like when the computer cursor used to lag. Exactly. Aldin says it's a frequency. Exactly. Koi Sewell says etheric imprint. Right, right. Okay. Jiren says like Cthulhu. And that's a excellent example, right? That is what Cthulhu is, the collective unconscious of man. So if that's happening on the physical plane, If that's happening on the physical plane, what if something very similar was happening on the astral, the mental? So in any case, that's the physical body, and attached to the physical body is the ego, which interprets what it likes and what it doesn't like and builds a personality out of that. And that's a layer slapped on top of this giant worm creature, right? Now, as you're observing that experience, we can also observe that this inner light is illuminating the inner experience of this worm creature. It's illuminating the feelings and the emotions and all that other stuff. And it's very difficult for people to reach that layer. And it's even more difficult to reach the layer above it. See, we can think of this inner light like a light bulb sticking out of a ceiling, this buddhi. And everything that I mentioned before, the body, the ego, the mind stuff, all of this is actually a part of the matrix. It's all part of Prakriti. It's all part of her. It's all part of her. It's not separate from her. All of that belongs to her. Your body belongs to nature. Your ego belongs to nature. Your opinions belong to nature. They're not you. You're not a part of any of that. You're the observer. Now, at the very tip-top highest level of the matrix you can go, at the very tip-top highest vibrating aspect of reality that you can reach, and you'll see this light bulb illuminating everything, this higher self, this inner light, illuminating everything. There's something that is fueling that light. There's something that gives power to that light bulb. And just like the body and the ego cannot look up and directly perceive that light, the light bulb can't look within itself and see the electricity that's fueling it. So what has to happen is that the observer must recognize that he's not the body or the ego, and he's also not the higher self. And you must invert your awareness. You must invert your awareness. That's the best way I can describe it. You must turn your awareness in on itself so that you can see the other side of that light bulb. Imagine that we've got this room, and in this room is you. And there's a light bulb at the top, and you suddenly realize, I'm not this body. I'm the light bulb. But then you realize I'm not the light bulb, and you have to invert yourself and completely turn inside out and experience what's on the outside of that room altogether. And what you'll find is that this room is floating in the void. This room is floating in a space that looks very dark, infinite black. The very same way that when the physical body closes its eyes and it looks black and dark until the inner light illuminates the imagination. It's because it's not darkness. It's a different quality of light. It's a different kind of light. The same thing happens here when the higher self inverts. When the awareness, when the observer inverts and sees what's on the outside of this room, what's outside of the box. The body can't go outside the box. The ego can't go outside the box. And the higher self can't go outside the box. And what you'll find outside of that box is it is blackness until you realize it's a different kind of light. The outside of that is the soul. And this is infinite space. Infinite space of all possibility, of all probability, of everything that has happened, and everything that will never happen, and everything that can't happen. So we talked about NPCs, or I mentioned NPCs, and while they have such a difficult time, well, just like I mentioned that there's different layers of the self, we're also dealing with the human race as a collective species, right? And as a collective species, we are hardwired to express our energy in specific ways. Now, these specific ways are universal. Like I said, the further you go within, the deeper you go within, it gets less personal. Well, that deeper within contains programming. It contains programming. Just like you'll see spiders, they are programmed automatically to spin webs. Birds are programmed automatically to fly and lay eggs and eat worms. Everything within Prakriti comes pre-installed with programs. Just like when you first bought your phone, right? You had programs installed in that phone automatically. Many of them you don't use, or many of them you never even think about, but they're running in the background. So with the human race as a whole, we've got 3 main programs. That's really all that's required for a healthy life. That's it. All the extra stuff is for the overachievers like us, right? Now those 3 main programs, the first one is survival, the will to live, right? Fight or flight response. That's how it expresses itself. You can think of this as like a red current of electricity running and powering every human being, right? Every human being needs 3 currents of power to operate. The first one is this red current, that is survival. And this is what causes us to live every day. On the low level of this red electrical stream, it's your heart beating, your lungs pulling in air, your stomach digesting food and processing it and pushing it out when you don't need it anymore. And everyone and everything on this planet has that red current of electricity. Everyone's plugged into that stream. The next stream is that of procreation. Now that was given to us by Prakriti. Why? Because in order for Prakriti, the matrix, to continue being what it is, it needs beings to reproduce themselves. In this case, it's through the function of sex. So right here, what you'll notice is that the vast majority of humans on this planet are concerned with 2 things: survival and sex. The number 2 ways that you can get anybody's attention is by threat of life or promise of sex. Why? Not because any of us are special and we love sex and we don't want to die. It's automatically programmed into this body, into this vehicle that you're inhabiting today. It's automatically programmed to it. So it isn't anything unique or special to have a sex drive. Every creature on the planet has one, and it's nothing special to survive. Every creature comes with that program, and it's not for you. The desire for sex, it's not for you. You didn't come up with it. You didn't even want it. It's built in because Prakriti needs you to do those things so it can continue to replicate its patterns. The third energy current, and we could say this is a yellow stream of energy, this is interpreted as the desire to form a herd, the desire to group together, the desire to belong, right? So these 3 main things become activated by the time we are high school age, right? 16, 17, 18, whatever. By that time, these 3 energy streams activate, and for most people, it stops there, right? And this is where people have get the term the sheep or the NPCs or whatever, because that awareness, the observer, does not expand beyond those 3 energy streams. And they're only concerned with surviving, sex, and being part of a group. So you'll notice that when you were younger and you began to feel different from everyone else, and even as you grew into your own and you began to study and practice and be, you'd find that these people would laugh at you, they'd ostracize you, they'd poke fun. They did everything they could to signify that you were not a part of their group, because when they saw you, they saw that there was something that they could not recognize, they couldn't put into an easy category. So they pushed you away. And that has been a blessing for most of us, because that type of treatment from society allowed us to grow the strength to walk on our own. And the path to those other 4 streams, you know I'm talking about the chakras, right? The path to activate those other 4 streams, you're not going to bring your friends with you. You're not going to bring your girlfriend, your boyfriend with you. As much as you want to, I know you do. You want to wake your friends up, your family up, And you can try. I can't tell you to stop. You're going to do it anyways. But you can't bring anyone else on this journey. In fact, you can see this type of ostracizing, this type of ridicule, as a way of Prakriti saying, you're ready to leave. You're ready to get out of here. Because whatever programming you got going on is not suited for me continuing the pool of NPCs, right? So as much as you want to talk down on and fight with all these other people who aren't awake, right? They serve a purpose. We live in a machine-like system, and it needs pieces to continue to function properly. Everybody's not supposed to wake up. Nobody said that. Everybody's not supposed to be studying magic and occult, and it's only supposed to be a few at a time. Because this is the thing, the machine, just like the movie The Matrix, the machine by default every now and again produces anomalies, and when those anomalies are produced, they have to be ejected from the system because they don't fit in with the rest of it. This is why you're woke and awake and all that other stuff. It's not a cool, trendy thing. I know it's become a trend, it's become cool, but that isn't the point. If you become awakened in your lifetime to this type of information, it's because you're on your way out of the system. You're leaving it. You're being ejected. You're graduating, you can say. What does that mean? That means that for the next stage in your development, you're not going to require this experience of having this wormy vehicle with this ego installed. That means that your work is to be done now on a higher octave with a different type of experience. So all the stuff that we're learning about, the psychic ability, the Kabbalah, the yogi stuff, this isn't so that you can create a social media page and educate people. And it isn't for you to gain superpowers to show off. And it isn't about for you to become a millionaire. And it isn't about you gaining a bunch of sexual partners or having an amazing music career or becoming a movie director. It's not about any of that stuff. Although you can do those things for sure. It's as if you've played a game for so long, you've mastered it, those type of things become easier. But eventually it's time for you to stop playing that game and move to the next one. So, what is this about the two most dangerous aspects of psychic awakening? So considering all that I said, you know, that was all really background information to kind of set the scene here. It's more than just, you know, you die and you go to heaven. There's layers to this experience. And this has been on the record since day one. This isn't something that I came up with. This isn't something that anybody came up with in the last 100,000 years. This information's been here. The path has been carved out. Jara says, so that worm could also be considered your life path. Yeah, you can say that. Anna Molly, peace. Nibs Music says, so when it comes to race, is that just a different path back to beyond the light bulb? Well, as I mentioned, what the deeper it within you go, the less personal it gets. And what that really means is all these differences and separations that exist on the outside quickly begin to dissolve the deeper you go within. We try to take these separations into those inner planes, But you got to check yourself. You got to be able to separate what the ego is doing and what the higher self is, right? That's why I try to really make that clear when we're talking about this ego aspect. Its function is to say, this is me, this is not me. I identify with this, I don't identify with that. All of that stuff is lower self, it's ego. That doesn't translate when you go up to the higher self. And like I said, the higher self is everything combined into one. All possibility, probability, and that which won't happen and that which will happen. Race is left at the front door. Sex and gender is left at the front door. As soon as you go within, there is no male and female. As soon as you go within, there is no Mexican, Indian, right? Now, there are side paths that go horizontally. So if we're talking about going vertically to the higher self, all those separations get left behind immediately. Now, there are horizontal paths, right? There are paths that go left and right. Those paths, you can continue on that train of thought of the different separations and go deeper within them and maybe get some background information or more on the subtle nuances of those things. But that's still a layer that's very close to the physical dimension. You're still traveling in like the etheric plane. Once we get to like the astral and stuff like that, those things can't really hold up water very well. Marco Power, peace. GP, are you with me? Okay, so as we get to this last part, I'm gonna say Saturday we begin the cyclomancy class. This is literally the last couple of days to sign up. Last couple of days. Look, I know everybody has this book. Everybody's got the PDF. But like I said before, I know you didn't finish it. You probably didn't get past chapter 2. And even since I said that and you heard me say that, you still haven't picked the book up, right? You still haven't picked the book up. This class is not about me reading cyclomancy to you. In fact, that's your job to read the book. What this class is about is helping you to actually utilize these exercises, to practice them, to have a group of people that you can practice with back and forth for the next 4 or 5 weeks to test and hone and focus on these skills. Because the number one issue that all of us have is consistency. We don't have the discipline to keep going, right? You've been watching my videos, you've been hearing me talk about cyclomancy and all the other different things that we do. You be the judge for yourself. How consistent have you been in improving your walk? Could you be doing more? Right? So this class opens up on Saturday. The link I'll post here in the chat. We start, and I'm going to put you all into groups. You'll be practicing these different exercises. This will give you a way to have accountability, right? So if you're slacking, you're going to see that the rest of your group is moving on. That's going to make you want to get up and continue. You're going to have people to talk to about this. Because just like what I mentioned about these NPCs, there's nobody, I mean, I speak for myself, I don't know about you, but there's not many people that I can talk to this about, right? Not in real life. Not very many people at all. Maybe one person, right? This will at least give you a few weeks to have somebody that you can go back and forth with, practice this information, reveal your discoveries, share experiments, and maybe keep doing this after the class, right? Think of it as a way that if you perhaps fell off, or if you perhaps aren't doing the amount of work you'd like to be doing, think of this as like a jump start. Think of this as a 4-week time period to really get back into the swing of things, all right? So like I said, class starts on Saturday, all right? I'm gonna post the link. You can message me if you can't find it. But once we go, we're going. Now, before I did talk about a second session, I don't know if we're going to still do that. We'll see how the first one goes, but open for a few more days. So, psychic ability, and the two main problems with it. So I've been working with this for a long time, you know, and you can kind of see on my videos from years ago when I first started experimenting. Like with me and my story, again, like I said, I didn't have many people to talk to about this. Hell, I didn't have anybody back then. That's why I started making YouTube videos. But I used to practice this stuff at work. I mean, I don't recommend doing this, but I used to practice this stuff at work. You know, I'd practice on my coworkers, whether it was the Goetia. I practiced cyclomancy, and it worked, right? I was able to connect with people in ways that were strange, right? Tapping into dreams and all this other stuff. And I would say probably the first dangerous thing to look forward to is when you actually do connect with other people, you'll start to notice that you begin having thoughts that may not be your own, right? So what I mean is that you've got a stream of thought that's processed, that's running, stream of thought that's going. When you cyclically connect with somebody, you start to open yourself to their stream of thought. And what happens is that stream will start to trickle into yours. And likewise, yours will start to trickle into theirs. And you'll start possibly receiving things, hearing things. And I don't mean anything like a movie, like you're going to hear voices in your head and stuff. I don't mean that. I mean, you'll begin to notice your awareness begins to attach to things that are out of the ordinary for you. And for someone who isn't really prepared for that, it can be a scary experience. You could even think that you're going crazy. You might even start to think that you can't stop it from happening, right? Or you might think that you're changing in ways that you're not in agreement with. So I'd say that the first danger of opening psychic ability is just that, being open to other people's thoughts. And they're not always pretty. So, has anyone had that kind of experience happen, where you open up to somebody and you start to get things filtering in that you know for a fact are not you? It's kind of funny. We're talking about psychic connection, and then it's like, oh my God, I'm actually connected to somebody. This is terrifying. How do I turn it off? Well, that's kind of the point. But like I said, if you're not prepared for that, that can certainly be something that can be misinterpreted. Wolf in Syrian says, ways that were strange. That's an understatement, but I feel you. Yeah. And just like Stray Panther said, this is exactly where discernment comes into play. This is exactly where discernment and non-attachment come into play. Taylor Chambers says, any update on the shadow work class? Yes. When we finish this cyclomancy run, I'm going to be updating a new section on the shadow work class. So after we finish with this cyclomancy, that's going to be the next thing on the table. Blossom Tulip says, Travis, you have a Telegram channel? No, I do not. Marco Power says, facts. This is why you see monks go into solitary. I think I spelled it right. Exactly. Now, just like I said, we're talking about people with those three energy streams, right? We're talking about the fight or flight survival energy stream. Then we're talking about sex energy stream. And then the herd mentality. I've got to belong. These are going to be the type of thoughts and vibrations that you're going to receive at an overwhelming rate if you try to dive in too deep too quickly. So don't be surprised if those are the 3 flavors of thoughts that you begin to receive when you first start doing psychic work with random people. Elisha Eternal says, I was watching Scanners. He was even able to tap into the computers. I gotta watch that again because I don't really remember it. Andy G777 says, almost every time I'm around someone, I will start to feel what they're feeling. It happened to me with emotions. Yes, yes. Nibs Music says, how would you stop it, for example? Well, I would refer you to chapter 19 in Cyclomancy. There's different ways. But mainly it would be closing yourself off. But like I said, there's different ways to do that. Framestar Film says, good to be able to open your psychic boundaries, but also just as important to know when to close and set them. Right. So while you practice and while you expand, it's also a good idea to practice closing and restricting. It's going to help with your mental safety, for sure. One of the best ways to kind of do that is to envision yourself almost encased in like a Merkaba or some type of protective field and really emphasize the visuals on that. Feel it, right? Or you can use the purple flame and use that purple flame to burn all the connections that you may be experiencing. There's different ways to do it, but what I'm saying is it takes an active role. I think one of the mistakes that I made at the time was I started feeling all this info coming in and I didn't think to stop it, you know. But I later found that the best way to do this is to actually close the door. You actually took the step to open the door. Now do the reverse. Close it back. It's not as difficult as it sounds, but like I said, for people who are not experienced and they just jump into this thing, that might not be something that crosses their mind. But now you know. Anna Molly says, the downside of being a natural empath before you figure out, oh, it's not me. Right. And that's one of the big problems with it. So if you don't close those doors, what happens is, remember what I said about ego? And the ego has this tendency to say, this is me, this is not me. Well, you start getting these new thoughts and these extra thoughts. What do you think's going to happen? The ego may be faced with a new difficult task, and it might start saying, this is me, to things that are not you. And any number of effects can come from that. It's a lot of fun though, and I think a lot of times for me, it doesn't come through voices. It doesn't come through visions. I'll start, my awareness will start picking up on different things in my environment. Hell, I might start seeing different kinds of memes. My awareness will start paying attention to different things. I know myself, right? I know my pattern. I know my frequency. So when things deviate from my baseline, I start to notice, and I have to ask myself first, okay, did I do something? Right? What am I doing? A lot of people are like, oh, somebody hexed me, somebody cursed me, somebody put a demon on me. That's your first impulse. Stop that. Stop it. Instead, first ask, what did you do? Take the blame first, because chances are it's something within your power that you can control. It's probably something you did. And that's good news, because that means you just reverse it. It's not always a hex, not always a curse. It's not always a demon on you. MXXNXIII says, is the purple flame and the black flame the same? No. One's purple. One's black. I'm not sure, like, exactly what you're talking about. Like, I know some stuff and you know some stuff. I don't know exactly what you're talking about, so I can't say yes. I'm pretty sure it's different, though. Stray Panther says, human thought is heavy and always moves down versus intuition that moves outwardly. This can be a voice or literal sensations focus in all direction. The point is to know the difference. Absolutely. Absolutely. Natural Mystic says, it takes mental discipline, it seems, to switch back. Extreme focus. Visual OD says, that's what I call a psychic entanglement, right? Ray Blackstorm, peace. You can program yourself to stop the alternate stream. I draw an X over the person. You have to learn. Trav, you on point, bro. Yeah, that's another way to do it, right? So you can get an image of the individual and cross it out. There's so many different ways. There's not like one or two rituals that are better than the others. What matters is that you believe in what you're doing, right? I can tell you all kind of stuff, but if you're just doing it because I said it versus you doing it because you believe it's going to work, you're going to get a different outcome. So choose what's right for you to allow a symbol to get to your subconscious mind to cut that connection. Ray Blackstorm says, the worst is seeing abuse in someone else's thought stream. That's pretty bad. I think the worst for me is seeing people who really are, you know, who have certain thoughts about things and entertain fantasies about things that are quite terrible. I don't like seeing that. People who enjoy inflicting violence on others, who get a pleasure out of that. People who enjoy, you know, really, really intense suffering. I don't like seeing that. Because you feel it too. If you take psychic ability seriously, what you'll learn is to really start to tune and straighten your beam of awareness so you don't go around picking up all kind of random stuff. That's one thing you're going to learn quickly if you don't give up. Okay, so the second thing, and then we'll conclude with this. The second dangerous thing about being, you know, opening the psychic ability is not what you'll find in other people. No, it's what you'll see in yourself. It's what you'll see in yourself. Now, we talked about ego having the function of separating this from that. Well, you've got two big piles here from this is me and this is not me. And the very first thing that happens when you go deep, when you close your eyes, and I said it was dark, the very first thing that begins to happen, I mean, I don't know about y'all, but to me and people that I talk to, the very first thing that starts to happen is the mind begins to fill itself with what's already there. In other words, when you close off your five senses, you start to become aware of what's already inside of you. And that includes the pile of things that you like and the pile of things that you don't like. That includes the things that you say, this is me, and everything that you say, this is not me, and the things that you run from. The first thing that happens when an advanced meditator closes his eyes is that you begin to be flooded with all the unsolved experiences, right? I don't want to say trauma, but all the unsolved experiences, which can be something like, dang, I should have spent more time with my aunt before she passed, right? It could be things like that. Or it could be things that, you know, you really enjoy doing that can throw you off and distract you. What that is the ego itself trying to reclaim your attention, trying to reclaim the observer being focused on it. Because here's the thing, the observer is the soul. The observer is the soul, And the observer is the power that even fuels the inner light. So when the observer is focused on the ego, you are giving the ego life. You're making the ego stronger. You're emphasizing this function of this versus that. And when you turn your awareness, when you turn that observer to the higher self, to that function that exists above and beyond the ego becomes starved. And it likes to eat. It likes to have that tube connected to its mouth being fed 24/7. So the moment that you detach from the five senses and start feeding the inner light, the ego will do everything it can. It will throw everything at you to keep your awareness and to keep your attention. And if you don't have the discipline, if you don't have the inner discernment to know and recognize that that's what's happening, you won't go past that point. And it's not like it'll show you something that I can tell you about. It's going to show you whatever it needs to show you to get your specific attention, right? It's going to be different for me than it is for you. But there's a lot of people who don't go past that point, and they think that that's all there is. They think that that's the extent. MXXNXIII says, is that opium bird behind you? What is opium bird? What is an opium bird? One time says, one of my coworkers' eye all of a sudden had a star-like thing pop up in front of her eye, then it went away. I was staring at it. It had a circle around it. Any info on this? Star started spinning after I stared at it for a while, like after 10 seconds of staring. I mean, you know, there's not enough information for me to answer that question, but you can answer that question, right? It's all on context. It's all on context. What do those symbols mean? What does this person mean? What were you doing? There's a lot of questions that I can't answer because only you know the answer to. That's not like a general thing. Is Shiva the observer? Absolutely. The observer is what the ancients called Shiva. And remember, Shiva is not a person with blue skin meditating on a mountain somewhere. Shiva is a state of existence. All right. How we doing? Zay Zooming, peace. Zay Zooming says, love to see the growth since way back when, bro. Thank you, thank you. J Bald Hail, peace. All right, so we talked about a lot of things today. We talked about how the self is a multi-layered experience. You're not just a person walking around getting mad or getting happy. It's a complicated process that involves a lot of things. We talked about the fourth dimension. You flying spaghetti monster. We talked about the inner light is that which illuminates the imagination and your inner perceptive faculties. We talked about how what you are is not the physical body, it's not the ego, it's not even the inner light, but something that exists outside of this experience. You exist outside of this experience. You're not here, you're not this body, you're not this mind, you're not this opinion. Everything that you can name and identify, none of that is you. Not any of it. None of it is you. What you are exists outside of this experience altogether. And to be able to find that thing, you've got to train yourself to turn your awareness inward, right? You're in the body right now. So the first step is for you to turn your awareness inward. What's that mean? You got to sit down, close your eyes, and turn the awareness inward. That's the first step. The next step is once you reach the ego, right? That thing that says this is me, this is not me. You've got to turn your awareness inward to go past that so that you can see the function of ego saying, I like this, I don't like this, and you don't identify with it. You can see it happening without identifying with it. Then you've got to turn your awareness in even more. And notice each level takes more skill, more discipline, more strength, more release. You'll get to this higher self level and you'll realize that the light bulb cannot see the electricity. So you've got to figure out how to invert that awareness as well. And what you'll experience is a new level of darkness, not because it's evil and spooky, but because you don't have the eyes to see it yet, because it's a different level of light. Just like the first time when you close your eyes to imagine, it's dark, but eventually a new kind of light clicks on. The same thing happens when you go above and beyond the higher self. It looks dark as if you closed your eyes, but eventually a new type of light will turn on. And once you begin to see the soul, there begins to cultivate this overwhelming sense of oneness. And all that separation that the ego was doing, you'll see was literally just a waste of time. Waste of time. So I hope that makes sense. If you're going to be working with your psychic ability, make sure that you set your boundaries. You're going to pick up some stuff that you probably don't want to see. You're going to want to run from it, and you might do so. Just make sure you set your boundaries next time. And don't probe too deeply, too quickly. Take it slow. And that also goes for looking within. Because before you get to this higher self aspect, before you get to this soul aspect, you're going to have to fight all the dragons that you've kept in your dungeon. Remember, the ego separated this pile of stuff I like and stuff I don't like. You're gonna have to go through that pile of stuff I don't like. You're gonna have to go through that pile. All right. All right, so any questions on the content that I just talked about? I didn't talk about the demiurge. I mean, I did, but and remember, if you're on the fence, if you're thinking about it, if you didn't make the decision yet, the window is closing, the clock is ticking. We begin cyclomancy class on Saturday, right? So if you want to jumpstart your practice, right? Maybe you fell off. Maybe you want to go further than where you are. Maybe you want to work with a group, with a community of people so that you can go back and forth and exercise your skills with. Now's the time to do that. I'll post the link in the chat right now. Yep. Just let me grab it here and then I will post it. I am Ku says payment plan. Message me on Instagram about that. And let me know your username so I can open the message. Okay, there we go. There we go. Aldin says, Trav, I'm very curious. How long did you practice Chiasterium before being ready for Chakra Shuddhi? Forgive bad spelling. It wasn't long because I kind of practiced both of them together. I think maybe I gave it a good week, or it wasn't very long. I practiced for a while, and then I started doing both of them together. And then over time, I kept reading the passage over and over just to make sure that I got it right. I looked up different videos on YouTube. I really researched to make sure that I was doing it correctly. But yeah, I didn't like say, oh, I gotta master this before going here. I did them both together. I Am Ku says, what's the difference between meditation and path working? Well, that's the thing. Path working is done through the use of imagination. So with meditation is kind of like a general term for being able to close off the five senses and connect with the object of focus, right? That's what meditation is. Being able to become one with the object of focus. That's what meditation is. So if your object of focus is the chakras, then your journey is becoming one with those points, those symbolic points of energy. If your object of focus is path working on the 19th path, then you use meditation to become one with the symbols associated with that path. MXXNXIII says, many say Lucifer and Shiva are the same. Is that true? So when we're dealing with these deities, they're not like people in the sky with an ID card and like, this is me. What we're dealing with are concepts that go beyond the human experience. So what that means is they're very difficult to describe clearly. Now, these concepts are universal, which means that people in India have experienced them, people in the Americas have experienced them, people in the Africas and the ancient Australians. They've all had certain experiences with these same levels of existence. Now they're separated through space and time, so they're not going to call, and culture, so they're not going to call these things the same name. If you do your research, you'll see that some of these entities correspond with each other because they represent the same thing. Now Shiva has a very long history of correspondences and descriptions, much longer than Lucifer. Dare I say, thousands of years longer than Lucifer. But ultimately, if we had to equate it to anything, right? If we had to equate it to my conversation today, we could say that that higher self would be Lucifer, and we could say that that observer would be Shiva. See, Shiva's also been equated with Dionysus, very, very closely to Dionysus, with Christ, of course. It's a lot of these different entities correspond because the things that they represent are universal. The labels that we give them change with the culture. MXXNXIII says, is the ego the demiurge? We can say that an aspect of the demiurge is the ego, yes. Yeah. But truly the demiurge is just slightly higher. The demiurge would more than likely be the entirety of the astral plane, right? Just like Shiva is a name for unconditioned consciousness, not a person, but a state of existence. The demiurge also is not a person. It's a state of existence. It's an aspect of this of existence. I think one of the worst things that people do is they look at these entities and deities and believe that they're people in the sky somewhere. Because what you do is you set yourself up to be deceived. You build a thought form in your mind that gets filled with elemental spirits, and they give you what you want, not what you need. So yeah, you're right in asking, is the ego the demiurge? Because these entities are more functions of the universe, not people like in the movies, not like Thor and Odin from the Marvel movies. They're functions of the universe, and we give them name and character to describe their functions. All right, all right. Red Blackstorm says that's idol worship, right? A lot of people get caught up in idol worship and they don't understand the difference, right? We're not doing idol worship over here. I don't care what god or gods or goddesses you choose to work with. It doesn't matter, because behind those gods and goddesses are the same energy, same energies across the board. But to get locked onto one and to believe that it's an individual person somewhere, again, you set yourself up for deception. These things get filled. They're called shells, larvae. They get filled with elemental spirits. And instead of being on that upward path of ascension, you're going left and right, and you know, feeding these things with your awareness. But hey, live and you learn. All right. So, we have covered a lot, and it's time to go. Looking forward to seeing you all in the Cyclomancy class, and yeah, let's do it. Matthew Watson, peace, peace. Okie dokie. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. I love you all. Peace.